Good morning, and welcome back to the show that goes one-on-one with people in our community making a difference. And my guest this morning is Rodas Asres from the Multicultural Association of Wood Buffalo. You know, I'm still struggling with that. I keep wanting to call it the Fort McMurray, but I know you changed the name a number of years ago. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Russell?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you? Because I know your role at the Multicultural Association is events and grants manager, but your focus recently has been the event, the big expo that's coming up on Saturday. How are you feeling about it?
I'm super excited, but on the other side too, I'm kind of, that anxious a bit about making sure everything is in place, the last minute details and stuff, but I'm super pumped for it.
You probably have a big team helping you?
Our staff is fully dedicated this week. It's not a big team, but big heart for sure. But everyone's dropped everything they need to do this week is all focused on Expo. So hands on deck for everyone.
We should point out that where the Multicultural Association is these days, because I remember, this is going way back, when the Multicultural Association had one of the floors on the provincial building side of the provincial towers. What do we call it? Jubilee Center. This is going back a long time.
Way before my time.
Way before your time. And then it ended up at the church for a while, I think, and then you were up at Walter and Gladys Hill School, but you're now at the Bob Lamb building at Keanu College.
Yes.
How's that?
It's amazing. It's quite a shift. A lot of our clients or friends that used to walk in a lot that lived around Walter and Gladys are not very happy, but we're getting a lot of walk-ins from the downtown area. So it's kind of exposing us to the downtown area, which is amazing.
Is it an impact being in the college where a lot of new Canadians end up going for training and upgrading and various other things?
It definitely is, and we also are collaborating with Keanu College, various departments on a lot of different things. We have practicum students from the social work department, so it does help, and we do have a lot of walk-in students. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting. I dropped in for a visit about a week ago, and it's a nice spot, kind of close to home for me. I used to be up on that floor in the Bob Lamb building. It's great. It's a great spot to be. This weekend is the Multicultural Expo. How many years has it been going on now?
At least 7, we say. That's how far back that I could track, or we could track it. And so this is the 7th one for the Multicultural Association.
Are you yourself a new Canadian?
Not yet. I'm a new permanent resident, though.
Really?
Yes.
So where were you born?
I was born and raised in Ethiopia until I was 18 and a half, and then I came up for school 2009.
How is your English so good? I mean, you look incredibly young. Maybe you're not, but you look like you're 21, maybe 22, and you came at 18 and a half. Your English is extraordinary. How did that happen?
So I'm 26, by the way, but thank you. I appreciate that. I learned English and Amharic, which is the national language of Ethiopia, I think around the same time. I don't remember. I'm assuming I learned Amharic first, but I kind of learned both, and our schooling system had both as mandatory languages. So,
wow. Honestly, I would have never guessed that it has only been eight years-ish that you've been in Canada.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's exciting. In your opinion, as a new Canadian, or about to be, whatever you called it, how important a story is the cultural diversity of this community?
It's so important. It's so personal to me because for me, it shows me being in Fort McMurray, even though I'm kind of a new Canadian, but I spent my adult years here, and I kind of found myself here in Canada. I think it's such an important story to be able to see such diverse cultures within Fort McMurray, within such a small town, and seeing people in different organizations, different places, volunteering a lot, and then coming together under one roof for events like Expo. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to see.
And the Expo is a mix of culinary delights from all over the world, crafts, performance.
Yeah.
What else should we tell people to sway them to come down? I assume it's at McDonald Island.
It is.
On probably the Nexon Fieldhouse.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, I got that right. I was completely guessing, but
you did.
What else can they look forward to?
Well, we're bringing the Parade of Nations that we did for Canada 150 event. It was very popular, so we're bringing it on the expo stage for the first time. We have guest performers from Toronto as well. They'll have 2 slots of performances. We have local performance. We'll have Russell Thomas, actually,
Ooh.
if you didn't know that. He's going to be doing
Yeah.
live paintings.
Yeah, excited to be there. Thanks for the invitation.
No, thanks for accepting.
The expo runs from 11 in the morning on Saturday to 8 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah.
Is there a cost to get in?
Yes, there is. So we have 6 years and older will be $5. 5 and younger will be free. But if you are a family of 5 or more, you get a flat rate of $20. By family, we mean mom, dad, and then kids.
Gotcha.
Right.
Should people bring extra money for some of the food things that are going to be provided?
Yes. So all of our vendors take cash. There might be 1 or 2 that take debit or credit, but I wouldn't bank on that. So just bring cash.
Gotcha. Rodas Asres is my guest from the Multicultural Association of Wood Buffalo. I'll get it right. Gee whiz. And getting ready for the Multicultural Expo at McDonald Island coming up on Saturday. We're going to talk more about the event and about the work of the Multicultural Association here in Wood Buffalo. You're listening to Impact. It's a team effort of United Way, Fuse Social, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray, at 91.1 The Bridge. Good morning. Welcome back to the show on a very chilly Tuesday morning. My guest is Rodas Asres from the Multicultural Association of Wood Buffalo, located at the Bob Lamb Building, now at Keano College, up on the 2nd floor.
Yes.
Yeah, easy to find. Got a nice set of offices up there. What a wonderful place for you guys to be.
Definitely.
Right in the heart of the learning culture of Fort McMurray.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No.
How long have you been there now?
Since July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's feeling good.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, congrats on your PR card. Okay, we were talking off the air, and Rhoda says, yeah, I'm getting my PR card in 2 days. I said, what? Apparently that means permanent resident card.
Yes.
Which, in your world, it's acronyms because everybody knows what that is.
It is, yeah.
But I'd never heard of that. So tell me, what does that mean, getting a permanent resident card?
It's another government-issued ID with my picture on it saying that I'm here permanently. Of course, there's rules around you have to be within Canada working for, I think, 730 days within the 5 years that you're here to continue to be a permanent resident.
What were you before?
I came as an international student and then transitioned into a temporary foreign worker because you got work permit after graduating here, and then, temporary foreign worker.
I have to ask, what is the difference between life, I guess, as a late teenager in Ethiopia and life in Canada as a young adult?
It's pretty different in a sense that, let's just say I was born and raised sheltered in Addis, and I would say a pretty privileged kind of upbringing, and didn't have to really work or anything, didn't do anything for myself mostly. And then I had tons of family, lived with my parents and friends everywhere to Hamilton, Ontario, when I didn't really know anyone. So it was a bit of a shock initially. And I remember my first time grocery shopping. My mom came over after my first year of university and, showed me around the grocery store and just, these are the things you need to buy for yourself. And then after she left, I remember going back to the grocery store and having a huge headache because I was just so overwhelmed. And so I walked out with a box of cereal, milk, and bread, and then I had to kind of settle myself and go back there again.
Your life in Ethiopia, was it similar in the sense, did you have shopping markets and similar to what we have, or is it a different kind of shopping market experience?
I think it's different. So say Saturdays were my mom's shopping days, and so if she was getting say onions and berbere, which is our basic spice, you would go to the market area, which is either piazza or mercato, we call it. That is very crowded, very busy, but you get those raw things there. But if you're doing bread and honey, things that you use, or eggs or stuff, that you just go to your local grocery store, similar to here. But there's kind of two sets. We weren't too fond of following her to Mercato or Piazza, just of how busy and crowded it was, but we liked the other parts of the trips with her.
This is totally before your time, but Ethiopia was in our minds a lot in 1985, when I think it was Ethiopia that was going through a terrible famine.
Yeah.
And I was listening to "We Are the World," which was a huge song in my graduating year. I was being reminiscent last night. And there was this global effort to help the people of Ethiopia. But again, before your time, you're young, you were born after that. But was that something that impacted your parents in any way?
Not my parents or my family, but I think the world sees Ethiopia through that lens still, and it's one of those things that I'm very passionate about breaking, because I don't like stereotypes, and I don't like people assuming that Ethiopia is that. And in fact, the Addis and the Ethiopia I grew up in is far different from what people see Ethiopia as. And so I'm actually finding myself learning a lot more about Addis and Ethiopia once I came to Canada from people with other perspectives of how they grew up. And so, no, personally, my family wasn't impacted, but knowing that there's still people, and it's extreme there, right? Like, you have the extreme rich, but you also have the extreme poor, and that disparity is still heart-wrecking. But living there, I was raised in a bubble. The people I lived around and associated with had similar lifestyles, and so it's so easy to be desensitized to those things until you step away and kind of look back and see, like, man, yes, we had a good life, thank God, and there are people around us that had good lives, but you see poor people, you see kids on the streets still, right? And so that's something that my heart aches for still.
I wonder how you break that stereotype in the sense that you still see it today. I recently watched a documentary called Poverty Inc. that talks exactly about what you're speaking. People see and think of Africa in the broader sense based on something that happened 30 years ago. Very interesting. My guest is Rodas Asres, who works with the Multicultural Association of Wood Buffalo. You'd never know it, but she was 18 and a half years of age when she left Ethiopia to come to Canada, and is not much older than that now. But she sounds totally Canadian, eh? You didn't live in Fort McMurray the whole time you were in Canada. You said you started out somewhere else.
Hamilton, Ontario, for 4.5 years, but going back and forth to Toronto because I had family in Toronto. I still have family in Toronto, my uncles and aunts and cousins and stuff. And then stayed for maybe about 8 months after graduating, and then moved up here with two of my girlfriends to try and find work.
And how long have you been with the Multicultural Association?
It's coming up to 3 years in June.
You're like an old-timer.
Old-timer.
And after the fire, you were the only timer.
Yeah.
You were down to a staff of one physically in the community for a period of a number of weeks.
Yeah.
How hard was that?
That was terrifying, honestly. I actually had times that I woke up from my sleep feeling like, oh man, I'm forgetting something. I need to be doing something. And just that burden of really not knowing as much as I need to know, but still being the only one here, and just that constant need to learn and adapt so fast was kind of a challenging season, but I think it was a good one where I got to learn a lot of things.
And you got to hang out with us at the Red Bull Center for a while.
Which was really cool. I did. And actually one of my memories of working very closely with our late president came from there, because that was the time that her and I were, texting or calling at odd hours of the day and just working together in the process of onboarding our new ED, or not new anymore, but Justine. So, yeah.
Well, the fact that you and your board weathered that particular storm is a testament both to the dedication of both yourself and the people that have been so dedicated to that board, and the important role of the Multicultural Association in our community. And I think before we go to break, I'd like to ask, when people come from other countries, and it doesn't necessarily have to be from Africa or Asia, it could be somebody from Ireland, it doesn't really matter. What are the challenges that they face that the Multicultural Association helps them with?
There's so many at so many levels. Like, even if you think, okay, they came, they already had jobs, they're already settled, like primary settlement, they have housing, they have everything they need in terms of, from what you can see from the naked eye, right? They will still need to be able to navigate the system here. They'll still need to be able to connect with fellow people from their country, to be able to kind of have a piece of home here, right? And so we do that secondary settlement service, be it language, we have interpretation, translation services, we have programming like financial literacy that helps navigate through the financing, banking, budgeting, debt, credit, just the basics, and then also investing. We have cross-cultural parenting program, which teaches parents to what parenting is like in the Canadian context. And so many different programs, and all except the multicultural cookery are actually free programs that we offer. And the interpretation translation service, because it's a certified service, we do have fee for service. But again, we work around those challenges. And even walking in, the other day I had a walk-in client that's from Ethiopia, and he used to be a Taekwondo instructor, and I happened to take Taekwondo till 7th grade. And so I was able to connect with him, and I was able to share some information in Amharic, and he says, it sounds much easier to hear it in your own language and much more attainable to hear it in your own language. And I was like, man, I wonder how many people go through that, right? So,
speaking of which, can you say we'll be back right after this in your home language? You're listening to Impact on 91.1 The Bridge. Back to the show. Our guest today, Rodas Asres from the Multicultural Association of Wood Buffalo, getting ready for the Multicultural Expo, which is coming up on Saturday. I'm excited to be there. Thank you again for inviting me. I'm going to be doing some live painting, which will be fun, and being surrounded by so many different cultures. But before, I'm going to have Rodas give us a little bit of a teaser as to who's going to be there, what countries will be represented. But if you step back a little bit, and I think on this radio station I heard the number, but what is the number of countries and or languages that are spoken, represented here in our community roughly?
Definitely more than 80. We're always constantly trying to get our data more accurate and trying to collect it more, but we know even through our events and programs in the 2017 year that we reached more than 80 cultures and countries, so definitely more than that.
Yeah, you go into the schools, and I often say, if you didn't know where you are, you wouldn't know where you were, based on the representation of the students. That's been the experience of my children anyway, especially in Dr. Clark downtown here. Yeah. There are children and families from all over the world. So at the expo, what can people expect? Who's going to be there?
To start off, we have 13 food vendors. That's not counting the snack booth that MCA will have. We'll have China, Bangladesh, Botswana, Egypt, Palestine, Lebanon, Kenya, Jamaica, South Africa, Indonesia, Philippines, Iran, India, Canada, Venezuela, Thailand, Ireland, Romania, Pakistan, DR Congo, Somalia, and Fiji. Fiji will have a booth from McMurray Métis as well. And yeah, tons and tons of...
All of those folks are doing food?
No, all of these are there.
Okay.
Let me clarify. Good catch. The food, we'll have food from Egypt, we'll have food from Lebanon, we'll have food from Jamaica, South Africa, Indonesia, Philippines, Iran, India, Venezuela, DR Congo, and Somalia, as well as Canada.
Now, excuse my ignorance, because I've been to the event, but I often end up later in the afternoon when I go, and so the food has sort of died down. How does the food part work? Like, in other words, do you go to a vendor? Do you get a full meal? Are they doing samplers? Or how does that happen?
So we're trying to keep it consistent across the board, where they'll have items for $2, they'll have items for $5, and they'll have items for $10. $10 is typically your largest combo, if you call it. And we've told them that it's a longer day this time around, so they're all gearing up to be able to prepare more food. And of course, course, everything has to be prepared at a certified kitchen, so they'll be cooking out at the Kampai.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many people came last year?
Around 2,500, and we're hoping for 4,000 or more this year.
This is a massive event then.
Yeah, we're super excited.
Starts at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning, goes till 8 o'clock in the evening. So if you're busy during the day and you want to come later, that'd be cool. You have a stage.
Yes, we do.
What's going to happen on your stage?
Amazing things. So we'll start off with the Parade of Nations that I talked about earlier.
What is that?
That is a choreographed piece to O Canada. I think it's one of the upbeat versions of O Canada. Well, you'll have a Parade of Nations, literally people in their cultural attires holding their flags, and it's a choreographed piece, and they'll start off the day with that. We'll have dignitary speeches right after, and then we'll have slots of performances. So we have two sections where we have between 1 and 1:30, 6 groups are performing, and then we'll have our guest performers, Toronto Distribution Company, appearing twice on stage. We have the fashion show. We also have the youth talent show between 4 and 6.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that this year, actually.
The group from Toronto, what are they doing?
They're going to be performing. They have their songs, and they have a new song, Canada. I believe that's the name that they're going to singing on stage for the first time.
Yeah. I know that having done 15 years of the Interplay Festival, that you never do these things alone. And you need a lot of volunteers. Talk about the volunteers that step forward for this.
Even on the day of, we have upwards of 50 volunteers that I'm happy to say I think are left with just 1 or 2 slots. And I'm so thankful for our dedicated volunteers. And that's not counting, that's just MCA volunteers I'm talking about, but each booth is run by volunteers. So by the end of Expo, I think we have upwards of 250 volunteers just on the day of. And so I'm just saying thank you in advance, because it's a lot of hard work leading up to it and on the day of as well.
Tough question. Why do we do this?
There's a lot of reasons. I think there's different ways of learning about other cultures outside of the context of sitting down in a classroom, and I think this is showing diversity in action. And so being able to have all of these amazing cultures in one roof, enjoying one another's food, enjoying one another's company, it's just a taste of Fort McMurray. And I think it's something that we can never lose, right? So that's one of the reasons, but multiple, just engaging people, giving people a way out. There's so many people in isolation that don't know where to start. So by volunteering, they get to meet other people, they get to volunteer with other cultures, and it's just a blend of so many different things.
I've been in Fort McMurray 21 years, and the community in that time has become much more culturally diverse. But how about in the time that you've been here? Do you continue to see it diversify?
I think so, because I said I was in Ontario, and Toronto's considered, the multicultural hub, but I disagree. I think Fort Mac is the multicultural hub, because I've met people from countries that I've never even heard of here, as opposed to when I was in Toronto, and it continues to grow. And we continue to see, like Indonesia, we're having Indonesian booth for the first time, and they're such a small community, they said, but they wanted to be here, and other vendors like that. So we're continually seeing that.
I know in one of my early conversations with Justine Rook about the ED of the Multicultural Association, the dream for this event, and maybe it's always been the dream, is that it becomes, quote unquote, a mainstream attraction, so that the broader community, those folks that have lived in Canada all their lives, come out and celebrate diversity with everybody else. Yeah. Are we well on the way to being able to do that?
I think we're on our way, but we're always trying to push ourselves. Justine always likes to say we don't want to stick to the status quo, and that's true, because we want it to be along the lines of, Stampede or any other event in Alberta that people actually flock into Fort McMurray for. And in doing so, we're also changing the image of Fort Mac as being the oil town or oil city, right? Like, for people to be able to see Fort Mac outside of the oil sands.
Do you think it is at all understood, this cultural diversity reality that we have in Fort McMurray beyond our borders?
Nope, I doubt it. Even I'm pretty certain a lot of people even in Edmonton don't know how diverse it is, and I keep hearing how people get shocked each time they visit for the first time.
Well, if you're listening today and you really haven't been exposed to the cultural beauty of Fort McMurray, this is a great opportunity. You're going to get some amazing food from all over the world.
Yeah.
It's a reasonable price.
Definitely.
The entry fee is reasonable, and there's a lot of entertainment. So if you have children, what a wonderful thing to bring your kids out to.
Yeah.
There's going to be, how many total vendors or booths do you guys have this year?
37, including the MCA booth in the henna station, and that's the all-time high that we've ever had.
You got to try the henna.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It is.
Well, good luck on Saturday. I'll certainly see you there. I'm looking forward to being there all day, and encourage people listening today, if you have not tried and experienced the Multicultural Expo, give it a try.
Yeah.
You'll love it.
We will.
Simply said. Thank you, Rodas.
Thanks, Russell.
Rodas Asres is the events and grants manager with the Multicultural Association of Wood Buffalo. She's awesome, as is her team and the team of volunteers that are going to be doing the Multicultural Expo on Saturday from 11 till 8. It's at McDonald Island on the Nexon Fieldhouse. You've been listening to Impact. It is a team effort of United Way, Fuse Social, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray, and 91.1 The Bridge.